that, I'm going to introduce, and Kim, are you with me? Can you hear me?
I can, and I am.
Awesome. So I'm just wanting to introduce Kim. Kim Beene is the Director of Human Resources, and I did put your email address up there. I think I asked you, but I don't know that if it's okay to share email address. And
yes.
if you have questions after the session, take a screenshot of that or say, hey, Eric, can you get me Kim's information? And I have had people do that in the past. I quickly want to introduce some of her colleagues who are with us on the call today. We have Carol Hubbard, Dan Lynn, Joseph Allen, Holly Young, and Michelle Rewa, who are all in various roles at Beene Garter. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Kim, because Kim is going to give us a little bit of an intro as to what's going on at Beene Garter and what Beene Garter is all about.
Thank you, Eric. Can everybody see my screen? All right, great. So my name is Kim Beene, and I am the HR director at Beene Garter, and I just had my 6th anniversary at BG. And so I'm responsible for the HR function. We have about 100 people in our firm, and we are located in the Heartside area of downtown Grand Rapids. And as you can probably tell from the people that we have on the panel today, we are largely remote. We do have a few people that have been working, holding down the fort at our offices. And one of them is on the call today. And we're just really grateful to be speaking with all of you. Tremendous respect to the educators and teachers and counselors that have navigated this year. We thought we had it hard when we went remote halfway through tax season last year, but certainly you've had an even more unusual year than we have. So happy to talk with all of you today, and hopefully we can give you some good information for your students. I remember the time well of going through high school trying to decide what I wanted to do. Had an awesome guidance counselor who really helped me figure out a college path and a career path. And so I think that there's just so much value in what you provide. So, we have done Educators in Industry one other time. I think it was about 4 years ago. So we're happy to be back doing this. And we are a 70-year-old firm. We're a CPA firm, but we have some other services that we provide to our clients as well. Most of our clients are West Michigan based. And our mission is to work hard to be West Michigan's most trusted resource for business solutions. And we do that by living out our values of excellence, integrity, respect, community, and a will to win. And this is our building. You've probably driven past it. We've got the Arena Place right behind us, and we're located on Granville Avenue. And as I mentioned, we celebrated our 70th anniversary in 1949. We're known as West Michigan's largest independently owned accounting and consulting firm. So there are many accounting and consulting firms in Grand Rapids, but we have a niche with the mid-size market, and we have purchased our building about 10 years ago. So we're happily located downtown, and hope to get back to our office soon and reopen when that's safe to do. But we don't go it alone. We belong to a larger affiliation called More North America, and it's actually a global organization of independent firms like us that help us with referrals. And in the HR area, they help me with compensation and software and all of the things that we need to know to operate, so that we're not, because we are a small fish in a big pond. So that partnership helps us a lot. And we serve many different industries in our area. So we have a large construction practice, and we work a lot with advanced manufacturers and small businesses, not-for-profits, and we do some real estate and healthcare and food and agribusiness as well. And we're a proud winner of West Michigan's Best and Brightest Companies to Work For. We've been an 18-year winner, so we're proud of that, since it's based on employee feedback and our HR practices. And I just want to give an overview of, I guess, to set the stage of the type of careers that you can have in an accounting firm. So I know obviously all of you think about CPAs, and we do have we're about 60% CPAs in the firm, but we also have some other areas where people with varying educational backgrounds that some of the people on the call will talk about have made very interesting and niche careers, learning to do the things that we specialize specialize in for our client service areas. So our managing partner is Tom Rosenbach, and he's an Aquinas alum, and he was an auditor. And Carol Hubbard, you will meet today, and she is our partner in charge of our audit practice. So this is our largest practice area. We have about 25 plus people, including our partners, that provide audit and assurance services for our clients. And then tax, I think, is what people think of first when they think of CPA firm. And of course, we're in the middle of tax season right now. So I'm happy to have Dan Lynn on the call. He is our partner in charge, along with Rebecca Postma of our tax department. And we have about 25 people in the tax practice, including our 4 interns this year. And then Michelle Rewa, who's on the call as well, she works in the administrative support service of tax and audit. And so she's going to talk a little bit about some of the support services where interesting careers can be built if you're not a CPA, but you're supporting those types of services. So that's I'm happy to have her here with us today too. And then another area where maybe students that are thinking about accounting, but maybe want to do something different than tax and audit, we do forensics and litigation services, business valuation. So we have a small department that can value a business, for example, if it's going to be sold or merged, or if there's a dispute of some kind and evaluation is needed, or for banking purposes, loans, and so on. So that's a niche area where you can see all of Eric's credentials there, where we practice in as well. And then a large part of being Garter, which is a little bit unusual for a CPA firm, although it's getting, I think, more common, is the outsourcing services. So we have 3 branches of outsourcing services that combined make up about 1/3 of the firm, and that's managed by Josh Garvey. And so we do retirement plan services. So all of the things to do with administering 401k plans. And we have about 12 or 13 people that work in this department. So it's accounting related, very client service and compliance driven, and not something people go to school for. It's something you come out of school and learn on the job, even though most people in the department have college degrees, but it's something that you're really trained on the job, how to administer benefit plans. And then accounting outsourcing services is, we use a platform called Sage Intacct, which is a cloud-based solution. And we have 7 people in this department, and we're doing the accounting services for our clients. So maybe they don't have accounts payable or accounts receivable in-house, or we even do virtual controller, virtual CFO type of roles. We are able to provide the software to people if they do have an in-house accounting department, and service that software and help them implement it. So Holly Young, who is on our call, she is our senior AR AP specialist. And so she's going to talk a little bit about her role in the accounting outsourcing services area. And then we also process payrolls for over 350 clients. So we have about 8 people that work in our payroll services area. And so we're considered a service bureau. We're doing the actual connecting of the withholdings and paying that to the different states and government agencies that collect that money, and processing the payrolls for our clients. And we use a platform called Assure to do that. And then Joe Allen is with us as well. And so we have a 2-person IT department that helps service our 100 people. And Joe has really been doing an amazing job and really put through his paces this year with security and IT support as 95% of us went remote. We grabbed our laptops on a Friday night and didn't come back for over a year now. So, so he's been a busy guy. And I think that IT, I love including IT because like HR and marketing and internal finance, we are the operational administrative arm that helps run the firm. And there are amazing careers in those areas, of course, in all companies, but in public accounting, maybe it's not something people think of using their IT skills to work in a CPA firm. But Joe's going to talk a little bit about that. So So that should give you an overview of who our 100 people are and who's on the call today and how they fit into the organization. And then just a couple slides here about Beene Garter in general. Our culture is super important to us and we're very anxious to get back to it. We like to have fun. We have a catered lunch on Fridays during tax season where we all eat together as a group. We do a big family outing at the Whitecaps in the summer and a holiday party on site. We did it virtually this year. We played a virtual escape room and we even managed to do virtual white elephant. So we're trying to make it work. And then we have like an online newsletter that's helped us with connections and culture this year, especially being remote. And then we're very involved in the community. So we do numerous community activities throughout the year. We have a Dress for Your Day policy where we collect $1 from everybody who wants to wear jeans and we donate that to a charity of the month. We do several blood drives each year and then collections for food drives and back to school drives. We do United Way Stuff the Bus every year and so on. We have numerous individuals as well who serve on not-for-profit boards. That's very much encouraged. I've been on our local SHRM chapter for HR management for the last 6 years since I've been with Beene Garter. And so that's being a local business with local clients. Of course, we're invested in that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and then we can turn it over to, if I can, I believe I put Carol first on the agenda. And Carol's just going to talk a little bit about her background and what she does in the audit department.
Good morning, everybody. Glad you all could make it. I am an audit partner at the firm, and my primary roles are functioning in the audit department as well as a client relationship manager. So audit, what is it? In audit, we focus on financial reporting. So financial statements that are generated by all of our clients. Typically we provide some level of assurance on those financial statements that they are being stated accurately and in accordance with the standards that we have to follow. So a very technical area, but as well, I mentioned client relationship managers. I have a whole body of clients that I am responsible for taking care of for the firm. Sometimes that means listening and having fun with them. Sometimes that means listening to them about their business problems. Sometimes that means listening to them about their personal problems. So accounting is much more than the technical side. It really is about relationships and building relationships. And that's a very important role that all of us play in our profession. And as far as my background goes, I was born and raised in Grand Rapids, attended West Catholic High School, as well as graduated from Aquinas College. And I have been with the firm a very long time. So I won't tell you how long, because then you'll be able to guess my age.
Thank you, Carol. And we'll have a lot of time for questions at the end too. So we'll turn it over to Dan next.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Glad to be with you all today. I am a tax partner with Beene Garter. I have been in public accounting now for a long time, 30 years. If you see any marketing materials on with me, I say it's 20 plus years, but it's been 30 years. I've been with Beene Garter now for about 10 years. As a tax partner, my responsibilities include oversight and direction of the tax department, as well as engagement teams. Carol mentioned management of client relationships. So on the tax side, we have similar responsibilities for working with clients and managing those relationships. Also, as a partner, I'm responsible for new business development. And then in addition to all that, there's the technical aspect of my job, which is addressing tax issues with closely held businesses, their owners and their families, which is, for me, I find it particularly rewarding because there's a lot of different areas of tax to touch upon. Anything, working with clients from complicated merger and acquisition transactions to estate planning with owners. A lot of what we do, I think the stereotype is that accountants all do 1040s, personal tax returns, but that's actually a very small piece of what I do. A lot of what I do is the corporate tax work. There's a corporate tax compliance, tax returns, a lot of planning. And then when we get into more complicated planning, it's coordination with clients and attorneys and other parties to that planning. My education includes graduating from Ottawa Hills and Grand Rapids. And then I went on to Michigan State University, where I got my bachelor's and my master's degree, specializing in tax, and then onto that CPA certification. And I can say one thing about the learning experience is, if folks think that the learning begins after graduating from college, it really begins at that point. So it's just an ongoing process. So that's a little bit about me and my background and responsibilities with the firm.
Great, thanks, Dan. Next, I'll turn it over to Joe.
Good morning, everyone. So IT, as you can imagine, is a field that just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I mean, pretty much everyone has touches technology every day. It's probably one of the first things that you interact with in a day. And when it comes to an office environment, there's a lot of considerations that need to be made when it comes to what technology you're putting in people's hands, what people are using every day. And a lot of that requires pretty good decision making based on research. So a lot in IT is centered around learning. You're always reading pretty much, because as you can imagine, there's always things that are coming up. Things are constantly shifting, changing. And last March, we saw a big change across the industry, and it really impacted every worker, everyone who had to shift to move to work from home. So I'd like to take something that Dan and Carol said, though. While there's a lot of technical heavy work and learning to do in the IT field, relationships are so important, because there's that stereotype of IT guys being in the basement and being antisocial. That just really doesn't fly in this day and age. You really need to be able to effectively communicate with people, to learn their needs, and to implement technologies that people are going to use, and things that you can secure and lock down to not only protect your business, but also make sure that your employees are safe, along with your clients and their business. So yeah, my background, actually, I went to Calvin University, and my actual primary degree is in business marketing. So a lot of that communication comes from there, but my minor is in information systems. So really, from someone that set out, I dabbled with engineering and then got into business, actually. So I went from in between a couple different things, and I ended up in IT, and I love it because it's just there's always new challenges, and you build strong relationships with the people that you work with, and yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Well, we're glad that you chose IT, and I'm, so glad you're going to stay with Beene Garter forever. Next, we'll turn it over to Holly.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Holly Young, and I work as the Senior AP AR Specialist, but my role at Beene Garter in the outsourcing department is basically to do the balancing and accounting pieces that other business owners don't like to do. I find it very fun. I balance checking accounts. I troubleshoot as to where things went, where should we record this, what should we do. So basically, business owners, in our department, we kind of help set them on a path of success for their business as far as proper recounting, so that when Dan and Carol call, we can say, this is what happened and this is the way it goes. And they have backup in support in that. So that is what we do on a daily basis. I basically balance checking accounts. I record credit card receipts. I post payrolls. But the other thing that I do is I communicate. Like, it's huge. Communication with our clients. I never met one of my 13 clients that I work with on a daily basis. I actually did not meet any of them personally until about 2 years in at Beene Garter. I talked to them on the phone, through emails. So not just vocal communication, but email communication is huge in my my line of work. And I think in most lines of work is communication is huge. A little bit about myself, my background. I graduated from Grant High School. In that time, I also attended the Newaygo County Career Tech Center, where I got a couple accounting classes out of the way at Baker. I was in that pilot program, so we won't talk about how long ago that was. Where can college and high school and careers all work together? So and then I went on to Spring Arbor University, and I graduated with a degree in management and organizational development. I have always loved accounting. I've always loved math. I've always loved problem solving. And I was going to get my CPA, but then my husband and then my kids, and then I just decided to to stay where I was. I worked at the bank for 20 plus years, which also helped. And then I've been at Beene Garter for 4 years, and I absolutely enjoy it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Holly. And last but definitely not least, we have Michelle, who's been holding down the BG fort all this time.
Good morning. Nice to be with you today. I am a co-lead of our administrative team here in the office that supports both the tax department and the audit department and the clients that are a part of those departments. We wear a lot of hats. So I have a team of about 5 people, and we do a lot of different things. We may have the most varied positions in the office. We are responsible this time of the year specifically for all of the outgoing work that leaves the office, whether that's digitally or physically, from both of those departments, but it's certainly not limited to those things. There's lots of correspondence that leaves the office, and we look at everything that goes out. We proofread everything that goes out. We correct everything that goes out. We have our hands in the software fields. We administer a handful of the software that is industry specific. And so we do training for a lot of our staff and troubleshooting for a lot of our clients. We maintain the integrity of the client data as well as the document management system here in the office. And we kind of are always thinking about efficiencies. So our world is kind of very much detail oriented, and at the same time having to think about the big picture. You know, how are we going to make something work, and how is it going to affect everyone else? And is this the best way to do it? So we're very strategic thinkers when it comes to other parts of the role besides just the getting out of the work from the office. And then, like everyone else has mentioned, we have a lot of relationship management pieces. So our clients for our small group are really the staff here in the office. We have this internal client group, which is the staff here, but we also interact frequently with the actual clients outside of the office. And like Carol said, sometimes those are conversations where you develop relationships over time with the people that you talk to over and over. And those are enjoyable things, and sometimes that's helping them through some things that they're very frustrated with, and hand-holding and walking them through that. And we know clients for a long time. I've been with the firm since 2007, and with a smaller firm that merged in since 2002. You get to know those clients over the long haul, and get to celebrate with them when things are going well in their lives, and kind of grieve with them sometimes when there are losses. And so our role is very much also interactive with the client base, despite the fact that we're maybe more behind the scenes. As far as my background, I graduated from Caledonia High School. I went to Indiana Wesleyan University and graduated with a secondary education degree in 2001, when there were no teaching jobs in West Michigan. Go Scots. And so I just kind of fell into this job, actually, as kind of one of those, like, I'll do this for a while until I can find a job in my career path. And this is my 19th tax season, so that's how that ended up. But I will say that the five of us in my role have very different levels of education. There's another person in our group who has a 4-year degree. We have someone with a 2-year degree, and we have someone with a secretarial college degree. So that's kind of gives you an idea of how long she's been in this industry. And then we have someone who has just been in the workforce for decades and kind of merged into this role. So it's certainly something that you can come at from various angles and land where we have landed. So.
Thanks, Michelle. I love, what a lot of people are saying about, like, something about your job is something that other people don't like to do. And I think that's so fascinating about careers that, I know I've been told so many times doing HR over my career, like, oh, I wouldn't want your job. And it's like, I love my job. And Holly mentioned that too, like, you're doing the things that clients don't want to do and you love it. So I think that all of the aptitude teaching and that coaching that career counselors and educators can provide is so amazing, because helping students discover what it is that is unique to them, where their job is going to come more naturally to them. It's just wonderful to see. So Eric, I'll turn it over to you with some questions.
Sure. And I just put in a chat a couple of seconds ago. I recognize we have a large panel. This is probably one of the largest panels we've had. And so we've got a lot of different experiences. And so educators, I'm going to ask you, I know we've kind of been sitting passively, but I'm going to ask you to ask questions along the way here. If you've had a question that you've ever wanted to know about, whether it be accounting or about workforce in general, here's your chance to ask them. Again, getting on my soapbox, receiving is great, but what are we going to do with what we receive? How do we take this and apply this back to working with our teachers, working with the students, and making an impact? So I'm going to start off with a question. So Michelle actually kind of threw me for a loop, because I earlier asked, did anybody do something outside of this? And I don't think she had, but she has a degree in education. So that kind of, and by the way, I worked at Indiana Wesleyan, so fire up for them. But so what I would say, my question to all of you is this: for the most part, a lot of our, at least the partners, it sounds like Carol and Dan, have had a long career in accounting. A lot of times we've worked with business partners and employers in these who, like, almost across the board, everybody said, I didn't go to school for this. I didn't go to school for this. And that they're in a field in which they didn't go to school for. Whereas it seems like more people at Beene Garter have a background in accounting, which makes sense. It's more of a technical job. So I guess my question to you is, why do you think that this particular industry, and maybe this is a tough question, but why does this industry tend to be more people who know what they want and are coming down that path, as opposed to maybe some other career paths where people just fall into it, like Michelle did? And that could be for any of you.
Yeah, and I think, when Michelle says that she just fell into it, I just kind of fell into accounting too. It just happened when I was in college, because originally I was an engineering student. I think but to answer your question, I think one of the things that you would find, at least on the tax side, is it's an extremely technical field. So it requires a fair amount of preparation up front. So I have an MBA that I got. I stayed in school right after I got my BA, I got my MBA, but it was with a heavy focus in tax. So there's just a lot of preparation that's required for the field. And I guess while I'm responding to this, it looks like Lucas asked a question of, do you see many people with an accounting degree get an MBA later and then leave the industry for a different business sector? That happens all the time. So I think that, you know, when you look at Carol and I, we've been around a long time. We've been in the industry our whole careers, but I think there's probably, you know, for every Dan and Carol, there's probably 5 people that left the career earlier. So they got their background in public accounting, and then they went on to other things. My son's father-in-law started out as an auditor, and now he's the president of a bank. I have a client that started out as an auditor, and now she manages a hedge fund. So I would say that probably happens more often than people staying in the industry as long as Carol and I. But the key is that accounting can prepare you for a lot of other things.
Comments. Great question and great response. Thanks, Dan. Did anybody else want to jump in on that question? If not, that's okay. We can jump into the next one.
I would say one thing I see, Eric, is a lot of times choosing the accounting profession is due to an aunt, uncle, parent, tends to have a strong hereditary element to it. And, you know, I really encourage students to look at it as a career path if they have not had exposure to someone. And we're happy to connect with students that might be considering public accounting and that would want to learn more.
Sure. And Lucas, by the way, your question is a great question. And I thought it was interesting too, to talk about getting an accounting degree or MBA and then later leave the industry for a different business sector. It was interesting to hear Dan talking about like those were different career paths. But again, the accounting background having to do with money, like the different industries, president of a bank or working as a hedge fund manager, still similar pathway in the fact that it's still dealing with money and it's still relevant. But we also talk to business partners all the time who, well, like Michelle, you know, went to study education and now doing something completely different. So I do think that is something it's really important for us to tell our kids. And if you've never heard me say this before, one of my things is there's a yin and a yang to this. I think it's important, and we are not doing a great job of helping our kids to start thinking earlier about what they would like to do for a career. But at the same time, put the brakes and say, we want you to start thinking about it so you have a plan, but recognize that plans change and that happens all the time, and you would not be unique when the plans change. But if you've done the preparation ahead of time, the least would be, hey, you know what to do to go back and reassess the plan. I think when we don't give kids the opportunity to start thinking about a plan, they don't even know where to begin. That's the part that I think we're failing them on, because the plans will change. Yeah, was somebody about to say something?
I was just gonna piggyback a little bit on what Kim had said. I come from a very heavy educational background. Both my parents are teachers. My brother's a teacher. My sister-in-law is a teacher. My grandparents were teachers. And I was encouraged not to become a teacher. But because of the heavy math background with my dad, and I loved math. And this was the route that I'm like, I needed to do something. So I was in banking, and then I went into here. So I was just gonna say it piggybacked kind of on that, what I was encouraged as a child to do or not do.
Right. Well, it's interesting to say that. I mean, unfortunately, it's you, and I know as our business partners all agree, education is a very tough profession. It really is. And I think sometimes our educators who've been doing it for a long time realize, unless you feel called to do that, you should probably find something else, because it can be hard. And I think it's underappreciated. So, next question I would have, this is for me. And again, as people have questions, please do not hesitate to start throwing them in the chat room. Dan, this we'll circle back to the question you had earlier, Dan. I took some accounting classes in high school. And when I was in high school, I was thinking that I might be interested in doing accounting for a career because I was good at it. I liked it. But my biggest concern was that I'd be sitting behind a desk all day long just working on numbers, no interactions with people, and it'd be quite boring. And my biggest fear was that I'd be like doing the same exact thing all the time, every day. And I'm such an outgoing person that I thought I would starve myself from social interaction. And having worked with you guys in the past, and a couple of you have even mentioned working with clients, that is just certainly not the case. So maybe explain a little bit more about, yeah, you have to know the math and you have to know the numbers and you have to know that stuff, but there's a whole lot more to that. And all of you mentioned social interaction, whether it be email or whether it be face-to-face, but go into a little more detail about like, what is that balance between you have to really, you're doing the work versus the interactions with other people and where that lies.
I'm going to go ahead and push this to Carol.
I was trying to find my unmute button. I was slow. I think that I've totally lost my train of thought here. At least in public accounting, from a career path, when you enter public accounting in the younger years, you're going to probably be very focused on building your technical skills. You get a good education when you come out of college with most today come out with their master's degree. It's a good solid background, but I tell you, in the first year, 2, 3 years, it's a whirlwind of learning. The technical skills, the processes, the technology that we have to use. But also, as you're learning all those technical skills, from an auditing standpoint, you're out at clients' businesses and you're learning those personal, professional communication skills. Somebody doesn't come to an accounting firm just to get their accounting done. They're looking for someone that is going to help them be successful in their business. I grant you, we don't know everything about every business, but you have to be able to articulate to people what it is that you're going to be able to do and how you're going to help them bring their business to success, whether that's planning from a tax standpoint, maybe it's planning on how to transition the business they have down to the next generation, whether it's planning on how are we going to get funding to acquire another business and fold it in. There is a ton of communication that goes on. And somebody else mentioned it, I think Michelle, you do end up building relationships with these people. They're not just business relationships in a lot of cases. They're professional, but they become personal. So you share in their successes as well as their failures, as well as things that go on in their personal lives. So every day I turn on my laptop and I don't know what's going to be in my email box or what I'm going to do that day. I might have had a plan, my to-do list, but a lot of days that goes right out the window. Whether it's a client needs something, a staff person needs something, a tax person needs something, and that's what you take care of.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you. Did anybody need to add to that, or should I go on to the next question? All right, I just wait like a 3-second count. Okay, so Curtis asked a question here, and he said, when considering a new employee, what types of skill sets, what are you looking for when you are looking to hire for a position? And that could go anybody here on the group.
Yeah, I think probably one of the first things we want to see is that somebody is willing to work hard, because this is a profession where we work very hard. We look for people that have aptitude, and for me personally, I'm also looking for people that are creative, and you don't typically think of accountants. The stereotype of accountants is that we're not creative. Well, as Carol indicated, we have clients that come to us with issues constantly, and we need to be creative in order to address those issues and solve those issues, and particularly on the tax side. And kind of straying a little bit here, when it comes to connecting to curriculum, some of the things I was thinking about in preparation for today is it's not just the English and the math. It's also about those parts of curriculum that foster creativity. So it's the marching band, it's the art, it's even the metal shop, it's sports. All of those things I think can play an important role toward a career in accounting.
I agree fully with Dan. It's also teamwork. He mentioned sports. Teamwork is very critical in what we do because we all play a different role on a team that's servicing a client. So being able to work in a team, leadership skills are very important. Who's going to step out front and lead the team? And Dan called it creativity. In my world in audit, I like to call it curiosity. Why did the client do something? Does this make sense? Kind of being curious about what went on. A lot of times we're working in the past, even though things continue and going forward, we're looking at what's happened in the past and does it make sense? So you have to be very curious.
Right. I'm going to piggyback off that, Dan. I'm glad you mentioned these other things, and it's not directly towards you, but I'm piggybacking off what you said. This could be for anybody to respond. My question is, I'm glad that you brought that up, like all these other things. I think oftentimes we are seeing the trend that has been over at least the last 20 years is pushing our high level kids, taking AP class after AP class after AP class, and they're loaded because the GPA that's like a 4.6 or 4.4 is their valedictorian. And so there's a lot of pressure for that, because you asked a question for the rest of the audience. Dan had asked a question before we officially got started, was, what schools out there? So I'm going to ask you to put in the chat for if you're a secondary counselor or work in the secondary at all, or even if you work in the middle school or elementary, but you know what's being offered at the high school. Does your A high school offer high school accounting? B, what types of accounting is it? Is it to basically bookkeeping accounting? Is it different types? Because to be completely honest, one of the things I didn't know was that there were so many different avenues to go down there. So go ahead and put in the chat, like, yes, do you offer it? No, do you not? But then my question is this, and this is really for our counselors' benefits. When we're talking to kids, and so many kids work so hard to try to get these high GPAs, obviously you want a high GPA to get you in a good school, and you want to get a good school so you can get some scholarships. But I sometimes think that that's at the detriment of trying these different things. Dan, you mentioned sports, whether it be sports or band or just electives or taking accounting classes. Which to you would you say is more important? That student has tried a lot of different things and is still a good student, or this kid who's got the highest GPA, but we don't see a lot of extracurricular? What types of things in each of your different roles, everything from the IT to our partners, like what is it that you're looking for, and why would you say that that's more important than the other one?
I think we're looking for people that are well-rounded. I think if we had two candidates graduating from college and one had a 4 and one had a 3.8, or even, doesn't necessarily even have to be a 3.8, but they have other activities. The one who has other activities would probably be, and the one who presents themselves well would be the one that would more likely get an offer. So it isn't necessarily the highest GPA. I think another thing too, and this comment is just based on my own experience. I have 4 kids, and the push with the kids is to take as many AP courses as possible. In my experience, the when the kids have so many AP courses when they go to college, they have a very short period of time of which to pick a career. And usually, you know, only one of my 4 kids has continued his education in the career that he thought he was going to go into after graduating from high school.
Interesting. Okay, what about maybe
I have
for some, oh, go ahead, please. Yeah, yes, Joe. Go for it.
Yeah, so the IT field is a field that benefits from a variety of prior experience, basically. Like when you come into IT and you network with some other people in the field, you find out that a lot of these guys just like problem solving. So might not have gotten the best grades or done anything like that, but the problem solving like part in their brain is always active, looking how to protect something. Like there's almost like a gaming aspect to it where it's a matter of how best to do this thing. It's not as rigid as people think, because there's a lot of different ways to achieve different objectives, and that only benefits from having a bunch of people, you know, kind of putting their heads together. Because as you can see in the news, a lot of hackers and stuff, that ingenuity that they foster is really from a love of technology, but some people end up being black hat hackers, which, you know, work to steal data or do something like that. And other people work to develop a lot of the security systems and protect a lot of the stuff. And it's that same sort of mindset, like how can I stop this? Like the back and forth. So the depth of background of experience, maybe not even directly in what people think of as like IT and and sitting behind a laptop and securing business endpoints is valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna say, I've worked. I would train a lot, and I've trained a couple of new employees here at Beene Garter, and having the well-roundedness, those that have had extra experiences, like I grew up in Grant, so obviously we had the FFA. I was a member of the 4-H. Those, and I was marching band. I was very involved. But when you push just the education piece of it, I think they miss the well-rounded communication. How do I associate with other people? Piece of what they need to learn in high school. Because once you hit the adult world, it's rough to learn that piece. How do I associate with people when they're already adults? That piece is, I think, important, especially in the educational realm of the high school learning aspect.
Right.
And I'll just tack on to that too. I think, we look at our group kind of from a totally different perspective than everyone else maybe. But it's not even so much about, did you do 17 different extracurricular things? It's, can you function with another group of people and have give and take and speak properly and professionally and know appropriate boundaries in the workplace and those types of things. Those are the things you maybe learn when you're part of a group. And it doesn't have to be a bunch of groups. You might learn it on your team, or you might learn it by being part of the musical in school, or you might learn it, from being part of the chess club or the debate team. Like lots of kids are good at that one little other niche area. And as long as there's something that has helped them to develop the social skills Holly was talking about, I think that is because we are so interactive. Despite that I have my own work every day, I'm interacting with other people all day long, even remote, right? And so it's just being able to communicate well and listen. And you learn that from being part of other things.
Michelle, that's a great point. And one of the things that I've repeated myself many times in the past for those who've worked with me quite a bit, but one thing I'm going to say for us in education, what I'm hearing you saying is all these different like communication and collaboration, all those are really critical skills. And unfortunately, those are not on our standardized tests. So because they're not on standardized tests, not that our schools don't realize that they're important, but they're they're just less important because they're not measured. And I do know that some of our teachers teach it, and some of our counselors preach it, but I think sometimes our students don't know how to clearly identify and translate. For example, if I'm sitting with you in an interview, Michelle, I don't know if they know how to say, like, when you ask, tell me, like, you know, how you collaborate, would they think to, like, well, when I was on my high school drama team, here's all the things that we did to help be able to transfer that skill to show you in an effective way. This is how I can tell you how I've really developed that skill. And that is something I think we need to be developing in education, as to help our students see where they're developing these skills, whether it be in the classroom or in the extracurriculars or whatever, and how those skills will translate. Because during an interview, part of that is selling yourself and being able to understand that. So that's a great point. All right, I have another question. So by the way, there was a great question that Dan had asked. So if you didn't see it, I see some people are responding. He is asking, this is Dan asking for you guys as educators, for those that responded that they do offer accounting classes, are those courses typically geared towards college-bound students? Meaning, are these the classes that, well, oh, they're not the college-bound students, so we're going to put them in accounting? Or we say, no, that's a great class for kids who are definitely college-bound, and we're offering that and propping that up as a great, career thinking type mindset course, or is it just an add-on course? And unfortunately, sometimes I see that as an add-ons, I think, because of the AP proliferate. And I did see some people said, well, did they, and I don't know if you saw this being Garter people, but sometimes, unfortunately, it seems like some of the schools have offered maybe one layer or maybe 2 layers, but anything beyond that is being pushed out because of the dual credits with the local community college, which makes sense, right? So if they really want to continue with accounting, they're going to take it through GRCC or another avenue, or another community college or local university. So another question I have for you is, and again, teachers and counselors, if you have questions, please jump in with your questions in the chat, and I'll give you a chance to ask them. What things should students be, so now we have a diverse group up here in terms of roles. What things should our students, or could we be doing to help them prepare for your job? And I think that's twofold question, because people want to be a partner today, right? Our young people think that they're going to go and make 6 figures right off the bat. And so help dispel that myth. I know our educators know that, but help dispel that myth. Carol mentioned lots of years of building up towards something. So dispel the myth that you're not going to come in being a partner, that you have to build up towards it. But also, if you do say, I have my eyes set on working in auditing, or I have my eyes set and working in IT, and I didn't even realize, oh my gosh, I could be doing IT, but working in an accounting company, or as a senior workflow specialist, all these different roles, help us to say, what are the specific things that you would say educators could be doing to help prepare kids for your job? Don't all answer at once.
Well, I'll start. So I think of two big things that I deal with on a daily basis. One is writing skills, because I proofread, or our team proofreads everything that leaves the office. Like, I learned the straight up good old 5-paragraph essay back in 10th grade or 9th grade. I don't write 5-paragraph essays anymore. But the teachers who are really hard about good sentence structure, correct grammar, all those things, that's a lifetime skill, right? And I'm still fixing stuff that comes through the office that are just littered with commas that don't belong, and people who write the way they speak, right? Professional writing is not the way you speak. How you write is different. And I think that apparently is missing, because we have really smart people who start in our firm who don't really write very well. So writing skills, huge. When I read a letter and I'm like, that's a good letter, like, doesn't happen often. So writing skills. And then the other phrase that I'll give you is like that whole idea of for problem solving, like, start with what you know. I think that's a huge help for me in my role, because I take chaos and create order for the client. And my problems, my projects sometimes are huge projects, and I need to whittle it down and make it a manageable thing that I'm going to pass off to the next person. And I learned in high school, math class, like, here's this enormous problem. How am I going to solve it? Start with what you know. Start with this piece and work your way down until you've got a solution. Or chemistry, start with what you know. Here's this enormous tackling problem. Here's what I know where to begin, and work my way down to an answer. And I still use that skill daily to create, take what has to be done and create something for the client on the other side. So those two skill areas, like writing is huge and problem solving is huge.
And I want to hear everybody else. I want to give everybody else a chance to respond. But to that point, Michelle, that you just made, first of all, that's what are the things that you learned in school that you said that still applies? So that's great. And the other thing, I'm going to kind of put this back on educators who are out there who are watching and listening to this today. We need to be having the Michelles and the Dans and the Joes and the Carols and the Hollies come into our classroom, or even in today's world, do a Zoom with us, because unfortunately we all know that that's important. What she just said is important, but sometimes they need to hear it from people out there to say, listen, when your teacher tells you that you need to learn how to write properly and it's going to be an important part of your job, they need to hear it from our panelists. They need to hear from people on the outside, because it confirms what you as educators are saying. And sometimes they just need to hear it from a different voice. Unfortunately, it's the confirmation bias thing, right? So others, what would you say? What would you say in your role? Here's some things that you could be doing, students could be doing to prepare themselves for your job.
I think really just kind of pushing that scientific method, testing and proving is very important for a career in IT, because a lot of what you find out is, and a lot of the stuff that you learn and that you're able to document comes through being able to break things down into their processes. So this thing is happening when I do this. So what are these things that could be connected to that? Or if I change this one thing, does that resolve this? No, let me try another thing. So it's really just a lot of testing, improving, and being willing to be wrong. And I mean, a lot of people come to IT and they think that IT just has all the answers, but a lot of it is by learning, by testing and improving. And, you know, if there's an issue that's going on, we ask people good questions. Asking good questions is critical, because if you're not able to ask good questions, you guys are going to be completely disconnected when you're trying to find a solution. So maintaining that communication with the person that you're working with the team that you're working with is important, because you'll end up at two completely different endpoints if you are testing and proving in a vacuum and without that collaboration.
I love that. I'm just going to reemphasize something you said, Joe. I think every single one of our educators needs to take what you just said, because this is the antithesis of education today, unfortunately. As you just said, it is okay to be wrong. Be willing to be wrong, because you have to be willing to put yourself out there to learn from mistakes. And I understand, recognizing you're working with a client, you can't make mistakes. Yeah. You got to get it right. But sometimes you have to be willing to test a hypothesis, find it to be wrong, in order to come to the correct solution. And then unfortunately in education, that's the opposite. They're so programmed to get it right, as opposed to be willing to risk getting it wrong to figure out the proper solution. So that was a great call out. I hope every educator walks away with that.
I mentioned earlier, creativity. If people are afraid to be wrong, they're not going to be creative, and that's a problem.
Love it. Yeah, excellent. Anybody else want to just answer that question? And then I want to give our audience a chance. Anybody who are verbal people who want to ask their question out loud, I want to give them a chance to do that, but I want to give a chance to finish up answering this. What do you want people need to do for your specific role? And I have one or two follow-up questions.
Real quick, one thing that I've learned that is black and white as math is supposed to be. There is almost nothing black and white about my job. And I working in the bank, you have to balance. That's just the way life is.
Right.
But in the accounting world, I have learned that it's not always the numbers. Still, yes, 2 + 2 is 4. You're not going to change my mind. However, the way to get there, sometimes you have to have that critical or curious thinking to get there. And that is something I think is huge, is life is not always, you have to be able to look at outside the box to get there.
Great.
Just to piggyback on Holly, that's absolutely correct. Critical thinking skills, being able to look at the big picture and say, does this make sense? And I think if you wrap all our comments together, it is about problem solving. Being able to put yourself out there, think critically, make a mistake, try it again.
It's about solving problems without having all the information.
Yes. Yes. That's the real world, right?
We've
And
gotten
that's
good
not,
at that.
I'm sorry, cut you off.
I was gonna say we've gotten good at that over the last year because there've been a lot of new laws that have come out over the last year with no explanation.
Right. Yeah, especially for you guys. Yeah. Right. And that is the real world though, right? Like learning how to problem solve when we don't have all the information, and how do we adjust that? Kim, I have a question for you specifically. I know we talked at our last teachers industry several years ago. We talked about how and especially in accounting, that you're going and looking for interns, and sometimes you're recruiting interns that are sophomore, junior year, like early. So for educators and counselors who are saying, like, how do we help point people to great career paths where there's opportunity, where we know it's a growing industry, where there's good income available? And then I'll have a follow-up question when it regards to high school. But when it comes to recruiting, what I know we've talked about it, but what does that look like for you? What is the trend in accounting? Is there still a hiring, like still looking for people? Is it still a growing industry? And what types of students are you looking for when it comes to internships?
Okay, great questions. So absolutely, it's a growing industry. The enhancement of remote work and opportunities this year is going to continue to expand people's opportunities in the industry, especially if they like remote work. Now, a lot of our group is missing the teamwork of being in person, but absolutely there are many opportunities. The more specialized that you grow into the position, specialized tax positions, like focusing on a niche area like state and local tax, once you have that experience under your belt, tremendous opportunities. And so we are recruiting, like Eric said, usually we're talking to students who are rising juniors. That summer, we have a summer leadership program where they'll come in for a day or two and learn about our firm. And they're usually participating in programs with other firms as well. So that's, if they came into college with some APs, they may only have been in school for a year if they, come in at that sophomore level. So usually they are entering college knowing that they're going to have an accounting focus, because by the time you've been in college for 2 or 3 years, you usually have probably 6, 7, 8 undergraduate courses under your belt by the time you're looking for an internship. And then many accounting firms are offering internships and even full-time offers to students that are juniors or seniors, and then have to complete their master's degree. So to be a CPA, you need 150 college credits. So generally that is, for most people, that's a master's degree. So it's not uncommon for people to know which firm they're headed to. I have offers out to students to start in 2020, fall of 2022, fall of 2023, maybe even right now. So, and then what we're looking for, of course, I think in public accounting, one of the things we didn't touch on yet, in addition to the critical thinking and leadership skills, but hard workers. Everybody thinks of public accounting and thinks of busy season, and we certainly try to balance that out throughout the year with more flexibility outside of busy season. But we look for, as Dan mentioned, a pretty full college calendar. Either that's some part-time jobs and sport. It's not uncommon, let me say, for us to see someone who is taking a full load and working a part-time job or two and in a sport, and is used to a very, very full week and can speak to how they manage their time and organize their calendar. That way we know when they come into public accounting, they're not going to have, system shock from being used to having, 40 hours of free time a week, because in public accounting, that's generally not, at least part of the year,
Right.
how things are.
I do have a follow-up question, but we're running out of time. I want to make sure I give anybody who is out there who's just like, they had a burning question. I'm going to just do a 10 count. And if you had a burning question and you wanted to unmute and ask that question, I want to give you the chance to do that. So I'll do a 10 count and then I'll have a follow-up and then we'll do a wrap up here. So I'll just do a quick pause. Okay, I always just want to give that opportunity. So as a follow-up to that, Kim, real quick, the last two questions here. Number one, kids who are, you've mentioned, I believe in the past, like the great thing about internships too is oftentimes you get the right, great intern and they're like, they're just a great fit. Kids need to be doing internships because sometimes that's how they'll get hired right on the spot, because if they do a great job in the internship, that's your job. So that's great. What do we have for now? We are talking with a lot of school people. So what opportunities are there out there for our high school students? Do you offer any types of job shadowing or co-ops, or are there anything out there for school students who are serious about this? They're not just saying, hey, it just sounds like fun, but they're serious about the accounting industry. They've taken a couple of accounting classes and now they're like, well, but I want to kind of make sure this is the right thing for me. What would you suggest?
I think that an informational interview is something that we can offer, whether that's a lunch or a virtual meeting, to talk with someone who chose it, kind of like we're doing today, what they like about it, what they would do different, what their advice would be, can really help a student. Job shadowing, we're open to it, but it's not, the office work sometimes isn't as conducive to job shadowing as something that's more hands-on. So I find that like an informational interview is helpful. Mm-hmm.
Okay, makes sense. But I would always encourage, again, counselors and teachers out there. One of the things we need to start thinking about is how do we kind of shift the thinking as we're getting our kids ready for graduation. It shouldn't be just waiting until you're senior. You should be doing some of these tours, these conversations. I know in Grand Rapids, we offer, at least until COVID, we're offering our talking tours to get a chance. And I know some of our different businesses in the town have offered these talking tours in the evenings to go and hear from people and talk to them. And then we also, we could talk about, well, what does a job shadow look like? Or at the very least, kind of where Kim was talking about these conversations, I would encourage, find a mentor. Like, talk to your students about finding a mentor in the industry they're interested in, so they can just start picking people's brains. I think we're about out of time. I'm going to just give another 5-second count in case somebody had a question, but otherwise I'm going to pull us back in together and to wrap it up. So I'll give a quick 5-second count. Okay. Well, first of all, just want to say thank you to all of our panelists for the time and energy you put into today. We really appreciate what you have done for us and the advice you've given to us. I know that sometimes it's just easy for us to think we know what kids need to be doing to prepare for what's next, but sometimes we just need to hear right from your voices. And that's why I encourage, if you're out there and you're in the Grand Rapids area, reach out to me. You saw Kim's email, just to reach out to her directly. If you don't have it, reach out to me. Hey, we would love to talk to Kim. I want my students to talk to you, especially for your accounting teachers. If you have accounting teachers who say, like, how do we talk to a Dan who says, hey, there's a lot more than just your basic accounting. Where do I need to go next? Like, that's the next great conversation to have. And that makes that classroom experience even more relevant. So I want to mention real quick some upcoming events, and I want to give you that SCECH ID number that you're going to need. So on March 29th, so next week, that's an evening session. I want to say it's from 6 to 6:30. So every once in a while, we'll do an evening session. I want to work with the teachers who are partnering with me, and sometimes it just works better for people. So maybe pass this along to some of your teachers who can't do things during the day. But Jennifer Mannion is an ELA teacher at Lowell Middle School, and her and her teammates did a careers unit. So the social studies, the math, the science, and the language arts teacher a couple years ago did this full careers project, and it was cross-curricular. It was really cool. So she's going to come on next week in the evening, on Monday evening, to talk about that. You can find that in the PD Hub. Also on April 19th, our first all counselor session. So we have the 3 counselors at Byron Center High School will be coming on to talk with us. So to get things from a council perspective, you want to check that one out. That's on April 19th. And then on May 10th, we have Catherine Van Overen and Derek Lowe. They are counselor and principal over at East Kentwood. They're going to come in and talk about career fairs. Our last 2 educators in industry will be coming up on April 16th with the Center for Physical Rehabilitation. Those times are always the same, 9:15 to 10:30. And then our last one of the year will be May 12th with Hope Network. And then just a couple of other things that are upcoming. And on Thursday, so 2 days from now, we have our next Career Readiness Network. And if you did not know, when you're in the Grand Rapids area, on March 25th from 5 to 7, Ken ISD, their secondary programs, is holding their open house. It'll be virtual. So if you haven't set up for that, or you haven't pushed that to your kids to let them know about checking it out, please do so. That's Thursday night. As always, I want to say thank you to our business partners. I also want to give you guys this link. I will put it in the chat in just a second. Bear with me, but it is bit.ly/EII-sketch. That's bit.ly/EII-sketch. And you need the 6-digit code in order to complete the survey. Just asking you a couple of quick questions about today's experience. And that's 729-431. 729-431. And I'll put that in the chat in just a moment here. Up on the screen is my email address, erickkelleher@kenisd.org. And if you haven't checked out our website, it's careerreadiness.kenisd.org. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Give me just a second and I'll put that in the chat. But I want to say once again, Kim, and to Dan and Holly, Carol, Joe, Michelle, I'm not sure if I missed anybody, but thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you for great people and great big panel. If you have any additional questions, participants, I'll stick around for just a couple of extra minutes, like 2 or 3 extra minutes. And again, I'll put that chat link in there or the link to the survey. But thank you so much, everybody, for your time today.